So when you ask those emotional questions, it's very easy to start activating that decision-making part of the brain, getting the customer to think about, yeah, no, I want to achieve that. I'm gonna make myself achieve that. This is all about how to ask powerful questions. It's one of my favorite things to talk about because asking powerful questions is so very important when you're talking to a potential new member, because asking powerful questions could actually have three different responses, all of which make it a lot easier for someone to say yes to a membership. I always say sales is all about making it as easy as possible for a customer to say yes to your product or service. So, a better way to think about that is in terms of asking powerful questions that do that. And so, if you think about powerful questions, it can have three responses. Number one, powerful questions can help to overcome objections before they even happen. Very often, I talk to people in the fitness industry and they focus so much on someone saying no at the end of a customer journey. In other words, they have an initial conversation, they do a free session, or they take advantage of your 3-day free pass. It gets to the end of that process. Obviously, the salesperson at that point goes to pitch the membership. And at that point, the customer says, well, right now, I just want to think about it. Or better yet, you know what? I have to talk to my spouse. They make all the financial decisions. And so you typically focus on like, oh man, they objected. But what I'm always telling people is that more times than not, the reason why someone objected is because you never built enough value beforehand, initially, right? When you first met that person, the most important interaction is that first impression interaction, whether that's on the phone or in person, whether someone calls you up to get more information about your studio, or they walk in the door and they meet you at the front desk. Whatever the case may be, it's that first interaction. And what you do in that interaction sets the tone for everything else. So being able to ask a powerful question that overcomes an objection is really important. So let's talk about a few questions you could ask that are really powerful that do just that. It'll make it less likely that a customer will give you an objection at the end if you ask the right questions beforehand. So, very often we hear the objection of, I want to talk to my spouse. And there's a process by which, in another module, that you will learn how to overcome objections. But in the beginning of a conversation with a lead, again, whether it's on the phone or in person, there's a question you could ask to kind of overcome that. And that question is something I've been saying for the last 30 years when I'm with a potential member. And it's, who supports you? Who is your support system? So imagine you meet a lead, you have that small talk, you're asking some questions. It would be great if you just asked, great, your goal is to lose 10 pounds, John. Who's supporting you in that effort? A friend, a family member? And notice how I say friend or family member. I want them to respond with one, both, whatever the case may be. But the minute they give me a support system, and a lot of times it is their spouse, what I'm doing is making it less likely for them to say at the end that that support system is now going to get in the way of their goal. In other words, if I ask John, who's your support system? And John says, oh, my wife, Stephanie, is my support system. And I say, great, so Stephanie is going to be really excited if you were able to lose that weight, right? And John says, yes. And so later on in the process, the sales process, when it comes time to say yes to the membership, it's very unlikely that John is going to say, well, everything was great. The price point is spot on with what I was thinking and had in mind. But you know what? I need to ask my wife first. It would just be weird. It doesn't mean they can't tell you that, but 9 times out of 10, you've already established that Stephanie's on board, right? And so that's a great question to ask, a powerful question early on in the process. Another common objection and powerful question you could ask to overcome that early on is when someone you know at the end says, well, right now I want to think about it. One of my favorite powerful questions to ask early on with someone is, hey, once I know your goal, let's say it's to lose 10 pounds, I always like to say on a scale from 1 to 10, how committed are you to losing 10 pounds? 10 being really committed. And most people give you a number, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it is. And that's great. But it's the follow-up question that's the more powerful question. Whenever they give me the number, I say something like, what made you not say a 1 or a 2? And they were a little taken back by that because they have to think like, what makes me not a 2? The art of that question and why it's so powerful is because the customer is now forced to say positive things about themselves. Early on in my career, I would always say, hey, why aren't you a 10? The problem with that is most people at that point are then forced to say negative things about themselves. Well, Kory, I'm not a 10 because I can't get to the gym 7 days a week. Give me a break. So I don't want someone to tell me the negative aspects of why they can't achieve something. I want someone to tell me why they can. And so when you ask someone, why not a 1 or a 2, they have to say things like, well, Kory, now I'm more committed than ever. And so that's why I'm not a 2. Or I just am more motivated. I've been so fed up with me for the last year that it's time for me to really kick my butt in gear. And so those are 2 great examples of powerful questions you could ask to overcome an objection. The second response we talked about a powerful question could have is the ability to plant seeds. This was pivotal in my career because early on in my career, I couldn't help sound like a hardcore salesperson. Now, for some of you, that works. I would argue that that's not only not comfortable for the customer to feel that salesiness, but it's not comfortable for the salesperson. I don't want to come across like that. And frankly, I'm not good at it. And so there's a difference between always positioning yourself throughout the conversation as the answer to everything. Like, oh, you want to lose 10 pounds? Oh, don't worry. You're at the best place. I'm the best trainer. I can handle that for you. Versus just planting a seed that you can use later on. And so one of my favorite questions and almost statements to use within a conversation is when we talk about what have you done in the past when it comes to your workout history, right? Great question. A lot of us ask it now. And again, it's not so much that question, but the follow-up question. Whatever someone's history is, I always tend to use the powerful question where I say, so it sounds like moving forward, if you had a consistent program that can get you to your goal, you would be more excited or inclined to have that. Is that right? Notice how I make it very easy for them to say yes. Is that right? And so who would say no to that? Of course, most people lack consistency. And when you combine that phrase, consistent program, and you say something like, hey, so I'm assuming moving forward, you're looking more for a consistent program, right? 99.9% of the time they say yes. That's important because later on, when I'm going to pitch the membership, I might refer to that. So, hey, John, remember when we first chatted, you talked about wanting that consistent program? You just tried us out for 3 days. Can you see how we can be that answer for you when it comes to consistency? And so that's a great, powerful question, example to ask, again, early on that invokes the response of just planting that seed. And then finally, when it comes to powerful questions, the third and most important response is it could activate the decision-making part of the brain. By asking a powerful question, you could actually activate the decision-making part of the brain because sales is all about, or I would say at least 90% emotional, right? And so how do you do that? It's actually very simple. We actually do it a lot and aren't even aware of it. And so an example of a powerful question that activates the decision-making part of the brain, I'll use John as the example. So John, your goal is to lose 10 pounds, right? Yeah. How would it feel if you were able to lose that 10 pounds in the next 2 months? The minute I ask that feeling question, the customer is now forced to actually put themselves in that place, down 10 pounds. Sometimes I like to take them on an emotional roller coaster and go, and John, what if you were never able to reach that goal? How would that make you feel? So when you ask those emotional questions, it's very easy to start activating that decision-making part of the brain, getting the customer to think about, yeah, no, I want to achieve that. I'm gonna make myself achieve that. And so the art of asking powerful questions is that simple. It comes down to invoking 3 different responses, asking a few different types of questions. The ability to overcome objections before they happen, the ability to plant seeds, and the ability to activate the decision-making part of the brain. That's how you effectively ask powerful questions.
Hey everybody, Jessica LaChance here. Do you want more business education for your fitness studio or wellness business? Subscribe to our YouTube channel or our email newsletters, and we'll see you here soon.